a question that the manufacturing industry has struggled with for many years.
Yeah.
As I said, we're designed to output at a specific rate and scale back as needed, but we're not designed to adjust quickly to huge fluctuations in supply.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. Manufacturers carry thousands of products, and each of them requires several materials with their own dependencies. This chain can go on and could feel cyclical. That's how complex is our supply chain. One critical component could block the production and further impact the production of products that may depend upon it. The best way to mitigate the supply chain issues is to have complete transparency into your supply chain and have an emergency plan for the rainy day. In today's episode, we have our guest, Gina Tabasso, who discusses the current supply chain shortages in the chemical distribution industry and their impact on various manufacturing industries. She also had a chance to discuss the crucial component shortages, their sources, and their dependencies. Finally, she describes the role and properties of various chemical products and their supply chain processes. Let me introduce Gina to you. Gina Tabasso is the marketing director for Dartech Incorporation, a distributor of specialty chemicals, additives, resins, pigments, and functional minerals for adhesives, rubber, paint, coatings, plastics, and printing ink industries. With more than 20 years of experience in advertising, publishing, communications, and marketing for industrial trade and manufacturing companies, she has specialized in B2B and digital and traditional marketing in the manufacturing and distribution space. She authored a monthly column on manufacturing that featured Northeast Ohio manufacturers and STEM initiatives. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hey, welcome to the show, Gina.
Hi, Sam. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, my pleasure. Just to kick things off, do you want to start with your personal story and current focus?
I would love to. I was lucky enough to become part of Dartech Incorporated in September, and we are a distributor of specialty chemicals, additives, resins, pigments, and functional minerals for a variety of industries. And I am their marketing director. So I bring my years of experience in marketing to the chemical industry as a distributor and am working to leverage the company's network in order to distribute the chemicals from our suppliers to the widest range of manufacturers available.
Okay, wonderful. So obviously we are going to dig deeper into the distribution and obviously the supply chain problems, which is going to be today's topic. But before we do that, we have one of the standard questions that we ask everyone, and that is going to be, Gina, your perspective on growth. When you think of word business growth, what does it mean to you?
Yes, we have a kind of pincher, two-pronged approach to growth.
Okay.
And the first is penetration into our existing customer base.
Okay.
So we have quite a few customers, and we distribute about 1,500 different chemicals. Some of those customers are only buying certain chemicals, and we would love to expand their offering. And then, of course, the second prong of the approach is lead generation and new customers that we have not yet identified or had the opportunity to work with.
Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about the supply chain shortages that you are experiencing, especially in your industry and obviously manufacturing in general. So talk to us about different factors that is driving the supply chain shortages at this point of time.
Yes, I actually recently wrote a blog It's on our website, and it's the 5 reasons for the current supply chain shortages. And the reason I did that is because in my relationships with our customers, our suppliers, people I connect with through social media, the biggest issue facing our industry right now is these shortages of materials and the resulting price increases that are due to a lot of these shortages and increased costs. It all started back with COVID, of course. Manufacturing shut down. There were shifts in production. There were temporary trade restrictions. And manufacturers notoriously are designed to output at a specific rate and scale back as they need to, but they're not really able to adjust as quickly to large increases in demand. And so once COVID started lifting and we started going back to work and production, we kind of couldn't meet the back orders and the demand that built up and accumulated due to COVID's impacts. There also is the US-China trade war, and that triggers pressure to increase domestic production. There has been for many years a truck driver shortage, and fewer drivers are available, and many of the workforce are aging out in that industry. There were, of course, everyone is aware of the severe impacts from the winter storms in Texas, but I think a lot of people don't understand how those storms affected the entire global manufacturing network. And these power outages existed for about 4 weeks to 80% of the state. It damaged equipment, petrochemical plants, which everything is based on petrochemicals. The plastics industry especially took a hit. And then the final factor is these freight and container shipment issues. There aren't enough freight containers available because of the backlog. There are backups in all of the ports where ships are just waiting to dock and unload. The Suez Canal blockage didn't help that. And so now we're rebounding from COVID. Orders are coming in. Containers were filled and shipped, and they couldn't be unloaded fast enough to send back to refill. And that created a backup in the shipping lanes and ports. So these are the biggest challenges that I've seen in my discussions with people in the manufacturing industry.
Okay, so obviously there are many challenges in the chemical distribution space just because of the petrochemical plant issue because of winter storm that you just mentioned, right? So all these material shortages, are these across the board for the manufacturing? Are there specific parts that are primarily in shortage and that is driving this supply chain issue? Are there any specific parts or the materials that are in shortage, or is it like everything is impacted right now?
Yes. Well, it's pretty much across the board. Most manufacturers are dependent on the additives, raw materials, and chemicals that go into making their product. Whether that's a matting agent that makes the matte finish on the back of your cell phone, or a thickening agent that thickens the paint or coating so it doesn't run down the wall when you paint. Pigments. So there's a big shortage right now in TiO2, which is titanium dioxide. That's the pigment used to make things white. And think of all the things in your environment right now, if you look around your room that are white, those have titanium dioxide in them. No one can get it. So one of the things we've been trying to do to mitigate these shortages is, number one, communication. Early communication with our customers, letting them know about delays, issues with availability, price increases. And then number two, recommending alternatives. So for instance, I just mentioned TiO2. There isn't any to be found right now, and it probably won't be available until this summer. But one of the things manufacturers are doing is purchasing TiO2 extenders. So it's an additive that you can put into your formulation that allows you to decrease the amount of TiO2 you're using. And so if you have a very limited stock available, you can stretch that stock. And we do supply a TiO2 extender as well. the plastics industry. There's shortages in plastics because of the petrochemicals. And there's a few other raw materials and additives that are unavailable and back ordered.
Okay, amazing. So let's look at the overall supply chain tracking here, right? So if we want to know which materials are going to be in shortage, we want to know what is dependent on what. And I guess that tracing could be slightly more difficult. So I don't know how manufacturers or distributors are tracing this. So let's take an example of the OEM. Let's say if somebody is manufacturing a car and they use TiO2 for the white color for the car. Now, obviously, that is going to be used in the body, but there could be several other parts that might be in shortage. So a car generally uses roughly 30,000 different parts. So let's say if a manufacturer or distributor wants to trace all of these parts down and want to sort of trace what are going to be in critical supply and which ones are not going to be available so that their production is not really halted. So what are some of the ways that you have seen from your experience that could be useful? Obviously, you have mentioned about the communication that, okay, once I know what is going to be in shortage, then I can probably mitigate the situation by either tracking, let's say, the substitute part or do something there, right? But I mean, see, knowing itself could be very challenging for a lot of manufacturers that may have large assemblies or very complex assemblies where they have many different parts. So from your experience, what do you recommend for this traceability as well as for management of this supply chain issue?
Yes, you bring up a really good example from the automotive industry. If you think about your vehicle, how many parts in your vehicle are made out of plastic? The whole interior is plastic, your dashboard.
Pretty much.
And with the plastic shortages, that's affecting manufacturers of cars and also the TiO2 shortage.
Yeah.
So what they're needing to do right now is hope that they have enough stock of the materials they need. If they don't, I know that we've been trying to source them from as many routes and avenues as we can. And most manufacturers, we're recommending, to plan for that short-term future shortage. We're anticipating normal levels should return by early summer, probably June or July. And I think the largest pivot that manufacturers need to make is really in their budgeting and forecasting, because those are, of course, going to have to be adjusted based on pieces that are going to be available and production goals, but also they're going to need to adjust to the price increases in the market that were not planned for. So that agility and an ability to kind of pivot for the unexpected is I think going to benefit manufacturers, and those that are able to do that are going to reap the most benefit.
Okay, so in your case, let's take an example of some of the parts. Since you are in the chemical industry, obviously your formulations are going to be very complex. I mean, that would be my understanding. You can correct me if I'm off here, because I don't necessarily have as much expertise in the chemical industry. But in general, I would think that your formulation or the recipes that you are going to have, they are going to use multiple components, multiple raw materials. So I'm pretty sure you guys also have some sort of dependency on the other raw materials. So how are you guys tracking at this point of time? Are you guys going, bomb per bomb, calling every supplier out there to make sure that they have enough supply and whatever supply they can commit to? Are you revisiting your contracts and then you are accommodating that in your supply chain planning? Again, if you're a very small shop, this could be easy. But let's say if we are talking about some of the large manufacturers, everything is just so connected when it comes to supply chain. So how are they doing this? I mean, it's just not a very feasible process. If they have to go through every single bomb, they have to call every single supplier. Is that what they are doing?
Well, what I can tell you, that's a really great question. We supply additives, functional minerals, pigments, and resins to chemists, chemical manufacturers, chemical engineers, lab technicians, and those people are the ones who create the formulations to go into the product that they either sell to manufacturers or into the product that they manufacture. And what we've done on that end of the supply chain with our distribution channel is have very close communications with all of our customers. They are dependent on their suppliers and their distributors. So letting them know every step of the way, as soon as we hear from a supplier about availability or pricing, we either do an email campaign and send an email out to our customers, or our salespeople are in touch with every single one of their customers to make them aware. Then on the other end, we have our suppliers that we distribute those products for. Yeah. And we are in relationships with them. So we can't go as a distributor to another supplier to try to get a product. And quite honestly, they don't have it. It's not that we don't have it or our suppliers don't have it. No one has it. And we've seen that happen. You know, some of our customers are scrambling and they're having conversations with other suppliers trying to get this product because it's their manufacturing operations dependent on it. And no one they're contacting has some of these items because they're just not available at the moment in the market. I can tell you that we distribute into the adhesives and sealants market, agricultural coatings, car care, civil engineering, rubber, metalworking, paint and coatings, plastics, and printing, ink, and graphic arts. And I can say without exception that all of those industries have been impacted by these supply chain shortages. There is no one in that network that is untouched at the moment.
Interesting. So let's talk about TiO2. What is the source of TiO2? Where does it come from? Is it manufactured locally in the US? Is it coming from other countries? Do you know? I don't even know if you know where that comes from.
Well, I do know that the ores are mined worldwide. Okay. It's actually TiO2 as an ore. Yeah. So they're the ones who are the formulation experts. They are the formulation experts, and they are the ones who make recommendations on products to use in your formulation to a chemist. Yeah. My technical expertise in that area is limited to what I know from our website and our marketing materials and from attending quite a few technical seminars with our suppliers.
Okay, so TiO2, you said that that's an ore, and that could be the reason why that may not be available at this point of time. And then you did mention that the companies can probably use the extender. Does the extender go through the same process as well, or is that impacted too overall from the production perspective? Where does the extender come from?
No, the extender is available. And I actually just found the information on our website. The company that supplies TiO2 is a company called Chemours. They were formerly DuPont Titanium Technologies. They were a DuPont subsidiary. Yeah. And they are actually the world's largest manufacturer of titanium dioxide products. So those products are used in plastic applications most frequently. Yeah. And they can be used in all modes of transportation. Like I said, in a white pigment, similar to what's used in the automotive industry. It's used on boats, cruise ships, shipping vessels, rail cars, airplanes. And so TiO2 is a white pigment, and I'm not sure where it is mined. I would love to find that out myself. But there's a lot of information available on our website actually about TiO2.
Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about some of these shortages. So I know that, we already know about 5 different shortages, but I mean, these things might happen again. I don't know. I mean, at this point of time, the kind of world we live in, anything could happen, I guess now, right? So let's say if that were to happen, what else can, let's say, manufacturer or distributor do to make sure that they don't run into the same situation again? I don't know if the communication is going to be a solution here, but seems like we are living in a very uncertain world at this point of time. Mm-hmm. So what are you sort of predicting in terms of the precaution that they might be able to take to plan better? So I know that you mentioned the agility as well, but if let's say a key or critical component is not going to be available, what else can they do?
That's a good question. And I think a question that the manufacturing industry has struggled with for many years.
Yeah.
As I said, we're designed to output at a specific rate and scale back as needed, but we're not designed to adjust quickly to huge fluctuations in supply. And so I think there's a variety of things that people could do. Number one, to create an emergency and crisis plan.
Okay.
This was a real learning experience. We got the opportunity to experience something pretty much unprecedented. And so now let's analyze the past year, how it's impacted us, what do we do in the future, and how can we adjust moving forward? One of those ways, and not all manufacturers have this ability, but if they can warehouse an amount of back order to keep them in production should something suddenly become unavailable, of course, that's similar to the experience we all had with the toilet paper runs in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Everybody worried it was going to become unavailable. All of a sudden, it became unavailable. So you have people hoarding it in their garages.
Yeah.
And, I don't recommend that. But, if you put a couple packs of toilet paper in your basement in case of a rainy day that the store happens to be out of it, great. And, we could take even those personal learnings from this crisis and apply those on a larger scale to manufacturing. How did we all adjust to the unavailability of products in the grocery store? What did we do to adjust our lifestyle and our way of doing things until things normalized a little bit more? And also, I think just planning for those price increases. I mean, we're all experiencing that. We go to the grocery store and prices have doubled or tripled on what we're spending in groceries. And a lot of that has to do with the supply chain issue. It's not just affecting manufacturers, it's affecting consumers. There's the trickle down through the whole entire supply chain, and it's passed on from supplier to distributor to manufacturer to the retail store to the consumer. And, the impact is felt by everyone.
Yeah. So in case of toilet paper or any of the physical goods that do not have any sort of the storage requirement or expiry date or the toxicity issues, then that's not going to be a problem. But in case of chemicals, let's say some people are trying to store chemicals, I'm pretty sure there is going to be some sort of expiry date there, and I don't know if there are going to be any specific storage requirement that they need to be aware of. And I don't know how TiO2 looks or feels or what is the texture of that, but I can almost guarantee that there are going to be significant EHS requirement for the chemical industry. So I don't know if they might be able to store everything from the supply chain perspective. So that makes it even more complex when you talk about storing some of these chemicals, right?
Well, the manufacturers who are utilizing those chemicals are already storing them. So
Okay.
they're getting them shipped to their facility, and they need to meet OSHA requirements, and also the National Association of Chemical Distributors were required to meet special requirements for safety and storage and distribution and transfer and shipment of these products. So they're already doing that. I mean, whether you have a pallet of the product in your warehouse or you've got 8 pallets of the product, you still have to abide by the same standards.
Yeah, but I mean, there is going to be some sort of expiry date, right, on the chemical products.
Not on a year basis, not in 3 months or 6 months. I mean, it's not something, you could rotate your back stock. So let's say just like what you do in your own home, you have canned goods on the shelf. You use up the canned goods in the front, you replace them and put those to the back so that the oldest is being used first and the newest is in stock. So, that's just something that they would have to negotiate in their own warehouse and their own manufacturing facility.
Yeah, but that definitely puts a lot of pressure overall on the storage requirement. You need to have, and I don't know, see how large these pallets are, right? And let's say if you are not used to storing a lot of these items, then you need to have additional facility, additional space, more products.
That's
that puts a lot of pressure overall from the planning perspective, also from the storage perspective. That's a lot of planning, I guess, for companies, right?
Well, it's some people are doing it. Some people actually rode the storm out. There are manufacturers that did have supplies available and they're still pumping out product because they're not waiting on the next shipment. They might, some of our manufacturers that we sell to order
Yeah.
monthly because they don't have storage availability. Some order once a year or once every 6 months or once every 2 to 3 years. Some of these products are also used in such small quantity. When you create a formulation, it's
Yeah.
got so many different additives and chemicals in it. It's not like you're using 6 pounds of titanium dioxide to make a gallon of paint. So some people have the ability to store larger quantities for a longer time.
Okay, wonderful. What other trends you are seeing, let's say in the chemical space or the distribution space, that you are aware of? Just from the trend perspective, are you noticing any of the emerging technologies that are going to be prevalent in the industry that, let's say, people can take advantage of?
We constantly have new products coming out. It's really amazing. The suppliers are formulating all kinds of different products that allow you to do business faster, cheaper, better, more resilient products. And every day we're constantly hearing about new developments in the market. We actually have a new product page on our website.
Yeah.
And every time we'll have a supplier or a distributor often release a few new products each year, especially in the pigment industry.
Yeah.
You think about pigments and color, even personally. Think about when you go to the clothing store to buy clothing. Every spring, there's a different set of colors that are popular. And all the clothes are, light yellow and celery green. And then in the fall, you get a new color palette that comes out with rusts and olive greens.
Yeah.
Look at the cars. When you go to buy a new car, there are always new colors available.
Yeah.
And this is the chemical industry. I mean, the colors that go into your clothing, those are chemicals and pigments. The colors that go into the coatings on cars, pigments and chemicals. And so those suppliers are really agile based on the demand of the marketplace. And so they're always working to make new product available.
So how do these colors come out from the product perspective? Are they simply trying different, they are simply trying to mix different chemicals and different formulations, and based on that, they are analyzing if there is going to be a new color? Is that how the R&D process goes?
Well, you are actually you're looking into the future, because I just authored a guest blog. It's for a company called Optessa, and they're actually part of a Twitter chat that I participate in Twitter every Thursday. It's USA Manufacturing Hour. And pigments is an area to really look at, because the world is so full of color. And we already talked about when you're purchasing a new vehicle, a lot of times, in addition to features, one of the reasons we buy the brand new vehicle is on color. We want the black one or the blue one or the red one, or I've already had a black car, a red car, and a blue car, so I want a white car next time. And pigment manufacturers, what they do is they follow fashion and design trends.
Yeah.
So they're constantly staying updated in the fashion and design market in order to create new colors that appeal to customers, as well as adapting to those annual color changes that the manufacturers specify. So oftentimes the manufacturers are the ones like automotive manufacturers, they're specifying the colors that they want next year. And the pigment manufacturers need to pivot and create those colors to meet the demand from the manufacturer, who's actually meeting the demand from the market and from the fashion and design field. So that's kind of how pigments work. And also, pigments are more than about color.
Yeah.
The chemical properties of the pigments determine durability and protection from delamination. So you've seen cars fade, you've seen cars peel. Some of that is in the coating and some of it has to do with the pigment. and they're used similarly for non-automotive applications.
Interesting. And since you mentioned that the demand is really driven by these automotive manufacturers, so when they send their demand, what are they sending? Is there some sort of unit of measure, or are these going to be color samples that they typically share? Or is it going to be that, okay, I am looking for, let's say, if they are looking for olive green, right? Now, in olive green as well, there could be multiple shades. So do they say that, you know what, I have this olive green, but I would rather have a little greener from the olive green to make it look better, I guess. So how are the requirements specified? What is sent to your pigment manufacturer? How do they interpret the requirement, and how do they share the product back? Do you have any understanding of that process by any chance?
I would not have visibility to that process because we're the distributor of the pigment.
Okay.
We aren't in on that conversation between the manufacturer and the supplier. And so we're selling the product for the supplier. But what we do is the manufacturer often has different technical requirements for their products.
Okay.
And so in each pigment and in each product, there are different grades. So you could have the same exact color in 5 different grades of pigment. And so it depends on what the manufacturer's needs are. So the 5 things that they look for in, let's say, any kind of coating when you're looking at pigments: weather fastness to prevent fading, color strength to make it bright and vivid, something called reduced flop, and that's basically so the color appears uniform from all angles, so that when you look at it from a different angle, it doesn't change color on you. Transparency. So if you want to mix that pigment with, let's say, metallic pigments for a special finish, the pigment has to be more transparent so that that metallic comes through. And also dispersion characteristics. You want to ensure uniform dispersion in your formula to avoid defects in the finish. So what we can do as a distributor, we can work with the manufacturer to make recommendations out of all the thousands of pigments we distribute, which ones have the properties that will meet their technical specifications.
Okay, and from your business perspective, do you guys do any sort of testing or internal formulation as well? Do you do any sort of combining of these chemicals as part of your process, or are you simply buying the product and simply reselling them?
We don't really buy product. We're a distributor. So the suppliers hire us to distribute their products. So we basically act as the sales and marketing arm of a chemical supplier. And we do 2 different things. When we sell product to a manufacturer, some of the products we do warehouse, and we can actually distribute them and load trucks up with pallets directly to the manufacturer from our warehouse in Cleveland. Some of them never enter our warehouse. We're the order taker. So we take the order, we transmit that back to the supplier, and they drop ship the product directly from their manufacturing and distribution facilities. But one thing that we do, you had asked about combining formulations. And we have 2 chemists who work for us who are salespeople. And they can make formulaic recommendations. So they can say, hey, you're trying to get more hardness, or you're trying to get more viscosity, or you're trying to get more brightness. We can recommend these 3 products from this supplier, and these 2 from this supplier, and these from this supplier. And if you combine those into your formulation, it will give you the properties that you are looking for. So that's a benefit to a manufacturer, that they get that consultation approach. And if they can have a one-stop shop, we can get all the chemicals we need from this distributor to make this formulation, and not have to buy one thing from one person and one from another and so on. So we call that bundling. We try to bundle different products from different different suppliers together in order to meet a need of the manufacturer.
Amazing. So that's it for today, Gina. Do you have any last-minute closing thoughts by any chance?
I am just honored to be here. I have a passion for manufacturing. My entire marketing career has, with a couple deviations where I went to get very specific experience, has really been devoted to the manufacturing, industrial, technical, and trade industries. And I thoroughly enjoy B2B marketing. I love now working for a distributor and getting to see the manufacturing industry from a different perspective. So working for manufacturers and then working for a couple distributors in my career has given me this very unique perspective. And I want to encourage people. It's been tough times for everyone. How long will it take for these inventories to recover, for prices to normalize? We don't know. We're expecting by summer that's going to happen. So I would just encourage people to hang in there. It's not just domestically that we're being impacted. The shortages have stressed global production as well. Even availability of materials from foreign suppliers are no longer available because there was a run on the market for products. So what goes up must come down and vice versa. This will pass. Let's do the best we can and hold the course and use this as a learning opportunity for the future.
Okay, wonderful. And my personal takeaway from the conversation is going to be, number one, have really good sense of your supply chain. You really need to know what you could be short on and build that emergency plan. That is going to be super critical, especially if we are going to face similar shortages as we have seen. I don't know what comes next, so we cannot simply rely the similar way, the way we have been operating so far. So build that emergency plan. On that note, Gina, I want to thank you for your time. This has been a very insightful and fun conversation.
Thank you, Sam. I've enjoyed it as well. It's been a pleasure.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Gina, follow her on LinkedIn and Twitter. Her LinkedIn handle is Gina Tabasso. It's GinaTabasso. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Erin Williams, who discusses the manufacturing and commercialization process of the personal care industry. Also, the interview with Scott Engelking, who describes why companies should be implementing a P-card program for their low-dollar transactions to reduce processing costs. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.